Before this teaching begins, I want to give all honor and glory to YAH. It's been YAH who has been walking with me. It was YAH who brought me out of Babylon. And it was YAH who has taught me all this time in the wilderness. For the past 59 years, He's been patient with me, He's corrected me, and He's stripped away what was false. And He has taught me every step of the way. This teaching is not mine. This understanding did not come from my own wisdom. It came from walking with YAH, listening, waiting, and learning obedience. My desire is not to be seen, but that YAH be sanctified, and that those who are waking up may be encouraged to walk with Him too. All honor and all glory belong to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob alone. Most people know Moses stood before Pharaoh with a staff, but very few people know that YAH trained Moses alone with that staff first. Before Pharaoh and before signs in public, YAH trained Moses in private. And before YAH sent Moses anywhere, He asked him one question. What is that in your hand? That question is where everything begins. But to understand why YAH asks Moses this question, we must first understand where Moses was raised. Moses was raised in Egypt, and Egypt was advanced in knowledge, systems, and spiritual practice. They had many gods. They had priests, sorcerers, magicians, and they had secret knowledge, and they had power. And they used that power wickedly. They used this spiritual knowledge not to serve YAH, but to control and enslave the Hebrew Israelites. And this matters because Moses did not grow up sheltered from this world. Moses was raised inside it. He saw their rituals, he saw their authority, he saw their enchantments, and he saw how power could be displayed and abused. In Egypt, the sorcerers used objects, but those objects were used for divination, not obedience to YAH. So for the first 40 years of Moses' life, he was being raised as Egyptian royalty, as an Egyptian ruler in training. Exodus 2, verses 10 through 11. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And it came to pass in those days, when Moses was grown, that he went out unto his brethren, and looked on their burdens, and he spied an Egyptian smiting a Hebrew, one of his brethren. Then Moses ended up killing that Egyptian, and he had to flee. Exodus 2, verse 15. Now when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moses. But Moses fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. So in Midian, Moses is stripped of his royal identity and becomes a shepherd. The man who once held authority in Egypt is now herding sheep. Exodus 3, verse 1. Now Moses kept the flock of Jethro his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert, and came to the mountain of Elohim, even to Horeb. So at this point, Moses has been tending sheep for 40 more years of his life. So now let's listen carefully to what transpires between Moses and YAH at this crucial point. Exodus 4, verses 1 through 5. And Moses answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice. For they will say, YAH hath not appeared unto thee. And YAH said unto him, What is that in thine hand? And he said, A staff. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from before it. And YAH said unto Moses, Put forth thine hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it, and it became a rod in his hand. that they may believe that YAH Elohim of their fathers, the Elohim of Abraham, the Elohim of Isaac, and the Elohim of Jacob, hath appeared unto thee. Many of us were taught that Moses carried a shepherd's staff. That's not what the text says. When YAH asks Moses, "What is that in your hand?" Moses replies, "A staff." And that word for staff in Hebrew is mateh. That means a staff of authority, a tribal staff, a scepter, or a symbol of rule, leadership, and governance. This is the same word used for the tribes of Israel, because a mateh represents authority, not herding. The Hebrew word for a shepherd's staff or herding is mishanet, which means a support stick, a walking staff, something leaned on for guidance and stability. Moses is not holding a mishanet. He is holding a mateh, a staff of authority. And here's the crucial point. Moses was using his royal staff while shepherding. The staff that Moses had in Egypt that symbolized royal authority had become an ordinary tool in Midian. YAH did not give Moses a new staff. He reclaimed the one Moses already had. Before Moses could stand before Pharaoh in the authority of the one true Elohim, he had to be stripped of Egypt's status, separated from its power, and retrained alone by YAH. YAH gives Moses an instruction first. Cast it on the ground. Moses obeys. And when Moses throws the staff down, it becomes a serpent, and Moses runs. Moses is afraid, and YAH does not rebuke him for fear. Instead, YAH commands obedience in the presence of fear. Put forth thine hand and take it by the tail. Moses was not meant to partner with this serpent. He is to handle it and subdue it through obedience of YAH. This is training for Moses. YAH did not give Moses something new. He revealed the purpose of what Moses had already been carrying for years. In Egypt, wizards carried the same type of royal staff or mateh. Sorcerers use objects, but those objects were used for divination, not in obedience with YAH. YAH uses objects, but they are not magical. They do not hold power in themselves. They only function when YAH commands someone on how to use them and when to use them. YAH uses physical objects, but righteously. Objects like a staff, a stone, a cloak, an Ark of the Covenant. But these objects are never used to seek hidden knowledge. They are never used to divine the future. They are used to bring forth obedience, judgment, and deliverance. Egypt had known this, and they had been using the same type of tools, but for an entirely different purpose. They mixed authority with divination. They sought power from their gods. They used enchantments to imitate signs from YAH. They relied on hidden knowledge rather than obedience. This is why Moses had to be trained differently. YAH had to take something Moses already had from Egypt, strip it of everything associated with the Egyptians before he sent Moses back to Egypt to confront Pharaoh. Only then, after separation, after obedience, and after private instruction, does the staff become something else entirely. And the scripture describes the change in how the staff is described. In Exodus 4, verse 20, "And Moses took his wife and his sons, and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the rod of Elohim in his hand." Moses does not name the rod. YAH does not instruct him to name it, but the rod is now referred to as the rod of Elohim because it is being used under Elohim's authority. The power is not in the object. The power is in the obedience of the person with the object. Then later, Moses and Aaron stand before Pharaoh. This is the first public display of what Moses was trained with privately. Exodus 7, verse 10 through 12. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as YAH had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers. Now the magicians of Egypt, they also did in like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. Scripture does not deny that the magicians copied the sign. Signs and wonders can be recreated through sorcery. Visual power can be imitated, especially when being used by calling on other pagan deities. Appearances can be copied. Exodus 7, verse 22. And the magicians of Egypt did so with their enchantments. Again, Scripture confirms this was not a single event. Exodus 8, verse 7. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. What this shows us is that signs alone are not proof of truth. Deuteronomy 13, verses 1 through 3. If there arise among you a prophet or a dreamer of dreams, and giveth thee a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder come to pass, whereof he spake unto thee, saying, Let us go after another Elohim, which thou hast not known, and let us serve them. Thou shalt not hearken unto the words of that prophet or that dreamer of dreams. For YAH your Elohim proveth you to know whether ye love YAH your Elohim with all your heart and with all your soul. Signs can occur, wonders can appear, but truth is proven by obedience to YAH, not by displays of power. The outcome cannot be duplicated. Aaron's rod does not merely stand, it swallows the others. Sorcery can imitate a sign. It cannot overcome power and authority given by YAH. That is why YAH trained Moses first, so he would not be shaken when imitation appeared. And after this confrontation, YAH speaks again, and he speaks to Moses. Exodus 7, verse 15. Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning, lo, he goeth out unto the water, and thou shalt stand by the river's bank against he come. And the rod which was turned to a serpent shalt thou take in thine hand. This verse is critical. It tells us there is one rod. It identifies it as the same rod that became a serpent that Aaron held, and it places that same rod back in Moses' hand. Scripture never introduces a second rod. It never narrates Aaron receiving his own rod. The rod Moses was trained with privately is the rod Aaron used publicly under Moses' instruction. So why was Aaron using Moses' rod? If this was Moses' rod, if Moses was trained with it, why is Aaron the one holding it in front of Pharaoh? And Scripture doesn't leave us guessing. YAH explains this arrangement before Moses ever goes to Egypt. Exodus 4, verse 14 through 16. And the anger of YAH was kindled against Moses, and he said, Is not Aaron the Levite thy brother? I know that he can speak well, and also, behold, he cometh forth to meet thee, and when he seeth thee, he will be glad in his heart. And thou shalt speak unto him, and put words in his mouth, and I will be with thy mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you what ye shall do. And he shall be thy spokesman unto the people, even he shall be to thee instead of a mouth, and thou shalt be to him instead of Elohim. This is about order. He chose Aaron because Aaron had a different function. Moses would receive the instruction, Aaron would speak it. So why does YAH speak to Moses and not Aaron? Scripture answers this clearly. YAH does not speak to everyone the same way because not everyone is given the same assignment. Numbers 12, verses 6 through 8. And he said, Hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, YAH, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and will speak unto him in a dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in all mine house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even plainly, and not in dark speeches, and the similitude of YAH shall he behold. What this shows us is that Yah chooses and calls different people for different roles, but only after he's prepared them. Moses was not sent when he first realized the truth. He was trained. Yah warns us about running ahead of him. Jeremiah 23, verse 21. I have not sent thee prophets, yet they ran. I have not spoken to them, yet they prophesied. Yah alone instructs. Exodus 4, verse 12. Now therefore go, and I will be with thy mouth, and teach thee what thou shalt say. And the prophet Isaiah gives us a picture of how the remnant is trained. Isaiah 50, verse 4. Yah Elohim hath given me the tongue of the learned, that I should know how to speak a word in season to him that is weary. He waketh morning by morning. He waketh mine ear to hear as the learned. We are in exile, being taught by the Most High his Torah and how we are to walk in preparation to do what it is he needs us to do. But we are never to worship an item. And the remnant must remember that objects must never become idols. 2 Kings verse 18 through 4. He removed the high places, and brake the images, and cut down the groves, and brake in pieces the brass serpent that Moses had made. For unto those days the children of Israel did burn incense to it, and he called it Neheshtan. Now let's look at what happens when an item given by Yah is used our way instead of Yah's way. Even Moses, who spoke with Yah mouth to mouth, was not permitted to act on his own authority. The staff was never Moses to use as he chose. It only worked when used exactly as Yah commanded. And when Moses failed to do that, the consequences were severe. Numbers 20, verses 7 through 11. And Yah spake unto Moses, saying, Take the rod, and gather thou the assembly together, thou and Aaron thy brother, and speak ye unto the rock before their eyes, and it shall give forth his water. And thou shalt bring forth to them water out of the rock, so thou shalt give the congregation and their beasts drink. And Moses took the rod from before Yah as he commanded him. And Moses and Aaron gathered the congregation together before the rock, and he said unto them, Hear now, ye rebels, must we fetch you water out of this rock? And Moses lifted up his hand, and with his rod he smote the rock twice, and the water came out abundantly, and the congregation drank, and their beasts also. This is why Yah trains his servants in private, because authority without obedience will always lead to judgment. Because Moses acted on his own authority, instead of obeying Yah's instruction, Yah judged the unrighteous divination. Numbers 20, verse 12. And Yah spake unto Moses and Aaron, Because ye believe me not to sanctify me in the eyes of the children of Israel, therefore ye shall not bring this congregation into the land which I have given them. Moses was not permitted to lead Israel into the promised land. After 40 years in the wilderness, after bearing the people, after obeying Yah in every other command, this single act of disobedience cost Moses his entrance. The water still came out of the rock. The people were still sustained. Yah was not sanctified, and that mattered more than the outcome. If Moses, who spoke with Yah mouth to mouth, was judged for acting without instruction, then no one is exempt from obedience. The rod never belonged to Moses, and the staff never belonged to the shepherd. They belonged to Yah. So now we return to the question Yah asked Moses in the wilderness. A simple question. What is that in your hand? Because by the time David writes Psalm 23, that question has already been answered. David understands what Moses learned. Psalm 23, verse 4. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. David does not say he avoids the valley. He does not say Yah removes the danger. He says he walks through it. The valley of the shadow of death is a place of danger, predators, enemies, threats on every side, just like now, just like in this second Egypt. What gives David confidence, though, is not escape, it is presence. For thou art with me. And then David names two different things, not just one, the rod and the staff. They are not the same. The rod is Yah's authority. It is correction. It is judgment against the enemy. It is what defends the flock, the remnant. And the staff is guidance. It is support. It is direction. It is what keeps the sheep on the path. One confronts danger, the other leads through it. David is not comforted because he holds them. He's comforted because they belong to Yah. That is the difference. When we walk with Yah, when we remain in His Torah, He protects us and He leads us, not away from the valley, through it. And that is why David does not fear, because authority is in Yah's hands and guidance comes from Yah's voice. So even in the valley, even in danger, even surrounded, we walk forward and we are not alone. Deuteronomy 31, verse 6. Be strong and of good courage. Fear not, nor be afraid of them. For Yah thy Elohim, He it is that doth go with thee. He will not fail thee, nor forsake thee.